Have you ever wondered how Napoleon Bonaparte's policies affected faraway lands such as British India? Picture this, the turn of the 19th century. France is under the dynamic leadership of Napoleon Bonaparte, a man known for his strategic mind and audacious spirit. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, the Indian subcontinent is grappling with the reality of British colonization. Napoleon, a man of ambition, is transforming France with his progressive policies, while British India, under the rule of the East India Company, is experiencing its own set of changes. On the surface, these two regions seem to exist in separate realities, their destinies seemingly unconnected. But history, as we know, is a complex tapestry, interwoven with threads of unforeseen influences and impacts. What if we told you that Napoleon's policies had a ripple effect, reaching even the shores of British India? Intriguing, isn't it? Let's delve into this intriguing chapter of history that intertwines these two distant lands. Napoleon Bonaparte, known for his aggressive and expansionist policies, had a profound impact on Europe and beyond. His rule was marked by a series of reforms and policies that transformed the social and political landscapes of the regions he governed. Here, we'll delve into a few of these initial policies that set the stage for a new era in European history. One of the most significant policies Napoleon implemented was the Civil Code, or Napoleonic Code, as it's often referred to. This code laid the foundation for civil law in many parts of the world, establishing the principles of equality before the law, secularism, and the protection of civil liberties. It was a revolutionary step towards modernizing the legal system and redefining social order. But his policies weren't confined to social and legal domains. They also had a profound economic impact. Here's where the continental system comes into play. Introduced in the early 19th century, this policy aimed to isolate Britain, Napoleon's arch-rival, economically. The concept was simple yet ambitious. By closing European ports to British goods, Napoleon hoped to cripple Britain's economy and undermine its global influence. The continental system was an embodiment of Napoleon's strategic acumen. He intended to wage a commercial war against Britain, believing that economic isolation would eventually lead to its political downfall. It was a bold move that sought to disrupt the balance of power in Europe and establish French dominance. This policy had far-reaching implications. It not only affected the European nations, but also had an indirect impact on regions far removed from the European continent. Trade routes were disrupted, economies were strained, and new alliances were formed. It was a period of great economic upheaval, a ripple effect of Napoleon's ambitious continental system. However, the continental system had unintended consequences, reaching far beyond Europe. In our next segment, we'll delve into these consequences, particularly focusing on its impact on British India, a region thousands of miles away from the heart of Napoleon's empire. Stay tuned as we unravel the intricate web of Napoleon's policies and their far-reaching implications. The continental system was not just a European affair, it had ripple effects that reached British India. With Napoleon's imposition of the continental system, a large-scale embargo against British goods, the economic landscape of Europe was severely altered. This policy aimed to cripple Britain's economy by cutting off its trade with continental Europe. Now you might wonder, how did this affect British India? Well, Britain, being a trading nation, relied heavily on its international trade routes. As the doors to Europe closed, Britain was forced to look elsewhere, and its gaze turned eastward towards its colonies, especially India. India, with its wealth of resources and strategic location, became even more vital to Britain. It was not just about the spices anymore. India's cotton, silk, indigo, and tea were now key to keeping the wheels of Britain's economy turning. The Indian market also provided an alternative for British goods, which were now barred from Europe. This increased focus on India had significant consequences. The British East India Company, which had been content with its trading posts along the coasts, started expanding its influence inland. British policies in India began to intensify, with a greater emphasis on resource extraction and revenue generation. As the British tightened their grip, they introduced systems like the permanent settlement of Bengal, which drastically changed the agrarian society of India. These policies, driven by the need to compensate for lost European trade, were often exploitative, leading to widespread discontent among the Indian populace. So in a way, Napoleon's policies, designed to weaken Britain, ended up strengthening Britain's hold on India. The continental system, while a temporary setback for Britain, inadvertently contributed to the expansion of the British Empire in India. In a twist of fate, Napoleon's policies inadvertently strengthened Britain's hold on India. As we delve deeper into the impacts on British India in the next segment, we'll see how this increased focus on India set the stage for significant political, economic, and social changes. As Britain turned its focus to India, the subcontinent felt the effects of Napoleon's policies. As we delve deeper into this historical tale, it's crucial to mention that the early 19th century marked a significant increase in British presence in India. This was largely due to the growing threat of French expansion under Napoleon, which led Britain to fortify its colonies and trade routes. Now you may wonder, how did this result in changes in governance and policies in India? Well, the answer lies in the British approach to colonial rule. The British, in their bid to secure their hold on India, began to introduce a series of administrative and policy reforms. These reforms were aimed at strengthening their control over the Indian territories and ensuring the smooth operation of their economic interests. One of the most significant changes was the introduction of a new system of governance known as the Company Rule. Under this system, the British East India Company assumed direct control over large parts of India, replacing the earlier system of indirect rule through local rulers. This was a significant shift, as it marked the beginning of an era of direct British rule in India. Furthermore, there were profound changes in the economic policies as well. The British introduced new agricultural and land revenue policies, which were aimed at maximizing their economic gains. However, these policies often came at the expense of local farmers and landowners, leading to widespread discontent and unrest. Moreover, the British also introduced new legal and educational systems based on the British models. These changes had a profound impact on Indian society and culture, leading to a period of rapid social and cultural change. However, it's important to remember that these changes were not simply a result of British benevolence. They were in large part a response to the threat posed by Napoleon's expansionist policies. In essence, Napoleon's actions in Europe had far-reaching effects, triggering a chain of events that would forever change the face of India. Napoleon's policies had set off a chain of events that would forever change India. Napoleon's influence was not limited to indirect effects, he also had a more direct impact on India. At the height of his power, Napoleon Bonaparte set his sights on India. He saw India as the jewel in Britain's crown, and he knew that if he could take it, he could deal a significant blow to Britain's standing in the world. To this end, he formulated plans to invade India, working in alliance with the Persian and Ottoman empires. But as with many of Napoleon's grand schemes, this one did not come to pass. However, it did have a profound impact on the subcontinent. When word of Napoleon's intentions reached Britain, it caused a great deal of alarm. India was an essential part of Britain's global network of trade and influence, and the thought of losing it to France was unthinkable. In response, Britain increased its military presence in India. The British East India Company, which had been ruling parts of India as a quasi-governmental entity, was given more resources and a stronger mandate. Its mission was clear: protect India from any potential French invasion and secure Britain's interests on the subcontinent. In the process, British control over India became more entrenched. The increased military presence allowed them to suppress any resistance more effectively and to expand their territories further. The British East India Company transformed from a commercial enterprise into a political force with its own army and bureaucracy. This period marked the beginning of the direct rule of British India, which would last until the middle of the 20th century. The British East India Company's control over the subcontinent was formalized and expanded, eventually leading to the establishment of the British Raj in the mid-19th century. So, while Napoleon never set foot in India, his shadow loomed large over the subcontinent. His plans to invade India led to a strengthening of British control, a paradoxical outcome considering his intention was to weaken Britain. Thus, Napoleon's policies, while aimed at weakening Britain, ended up strengthening its control over India. The interplay between Napoleon's policies and British India is a fascinating study in unintended consequences. We've journeyed through the intricacies of Napoleon's strategies, and seen how they inadvertently bolstered British supremacy in India. The French Emperor's continental blockade, meant to cripple Britain, actually drove the British to expand trade in India, solidifying their economic foothold. His ambition to challenge British power led to the Treaty of Amiens, which indirectly led to the British East India Company gaining more territories. These happenings illustrate how the ripple effect of one nation's policies can drastically shift the balance of power in another part of the globe. Napoleon's actions, designed to fortify France and weaken Britain, ironically, ended up strengthening British control over India. This is just one of the many ways history intertwines, with actions in one corner of the world affecting outcomes in another.